I'm Lauren D'Amelio Ventry, and I have been in this industry for over 16 years. Today, I'm going to go over each brush that I love to use in my own personal life and on my clients. Being a global makeup educator, one of the biggest questions that I get asked every single class and on the comments and social are, what brushes are you using, or what brush did you use for that? And I feel like so many people overthink it, and especially if you're a beginner or if you're doing your own makeup at home, you might be overthinking brushes just a little bit too much. So I wanted to talk to you about brushes, and I wanted to help really bring all of those questions to an end and just make you have a little bit more fun with using makeup brushes. I'm going to go over the basics of each different brush that I personally like to use in my own kit and on myself in my own life. We are going to start off first with a lip brush. This is a small synthetic brush, normally rounded at the top, and I do like to use this for lip products, lip gloss, lipstick. I apply on my clients with this. If it is my personal lipstick, I will apply it on myself, but this is also great to help blend out lip liner once it's on. You want to use a synthetic brush for lip products because synthetic brushes don't have pores in them, so they are just going to apply the most product. They're not going to have a ton of blendability, and they are going to lay the most amount of product down for you, especially when they're flat and dense like a lip brush is. But anything small like this, I like it to be a little bit rounded. It just helps curve to the lip shape. I also do like this for spot concealing, so don't feel like you can only use it for the lip. I think a lot of people get a little bit too caught up in like, this is only a lip brush, I can only use it for doing lips. I have multiples of this brush in my kit, and I will use this for small spot concealing, maybe if I need to clean up a little bit under the eye. Anything for cream or liquid products. I really like this lip brush, but can be used for many other things. Next, we're going to move on to a concealer brush. This is one of my favorite concealer brushes because it does have two sides. It has a rounded side and a flat side. Why I like this brush so much is because I'm able to use this side for larger areas to cover a larger surface. Maybe I want to use it to apply my eyeshadow base, sculpt out under the brow, or apply my concealer, contour, whatever you may want to do. Again, it's going to be a synthetic brush. It's going to be flat and it's going to be dense, so it's going to apply a good amount of product in the area that you want it to be. They are precise. The flat edge is also great for cleaning up around the brow, even up top. If you want to make any straight lines, great tool to use. I'm going to have a little giveaway for you guys, which is going to be all my favorite brushes with their links. So that will be attached to this video for you. So don't overthink writing down every single brush that I'm holding up right now. That's why I'm not giving you their name at the moment. But right now, this is my favorite brush to use for concealer and cream products. Highlight, contour, one of my favorite brushes to use. Next is an angled liner brush. And this is really thin. This is really precise. Again, it's going to be a synthetic brush. It's not going to have a lot of fluff to it. You want it to be very thin. You want it to be really precise. So I like my angled brushes to be smaller, especially when I'm doing using them for eyeliner. This is going to be your best friend when it comes to getting a really nice sharp wing or that little inner corner. Something small and angled like this will help you out a ton. Another angled brush that I like to use in my kit or on myself is a brow brush. So they're normally a little bit longer in angle or in length, and you could kind of cover a little bit more surface area with it. Angled brushes come in all different shapes and sizes. I just prefer them to be a little bit smaller. I like the precision that you get with a smaller brush, but don't overthink it. If you are trying to really get a nice thin line, like when you're trying to draw on little brow hairs, I do like them to be thinner and smaller. But if you're going to do a bigger, maybe winged liner look, if you're using a larger angled brush, it will be totally fine as well. The brow brushes typically have a little spoolie on the bottom, so it's nice and easy for you to fluff up the brow or down to get right into those little areas that need to be filled. Love this brush for brows. I'm going to grab this is a liner brush. It's a little bit thicker than what you might think of. They also make them very thin. I love this brush right here for smoking out eyeliner or applying smoky eyeliner, because it kind of does 2-in-1 for you, where if you're using a much thinner one or an angled brush, you're getting more of that sharp line, where you're using one like this where it's a little bit thicker. with a little bit more wiggle room to it, I guess I would say. It kind of moves a little bit more. It's not as dense, it's slightly more fluffy. Not that it's a fluffy brush by any means, but it does have a little bit more give to it. This is great for any kind of smoky liner look that you're trying to achieve. Another brush that I love to use for precision work or maybe even creating a smoky line or shadow is this small smudger brush. It is natural hairs. So when it's natural hairs, it does have the pores. You're going to get more of that blown out, diffused look when using natural hair brushes. So this is very small. You're going to have a lot of precision with this. Again, I love to use it to create smoky shadow looks. It is a great tool to have. You can also use it for if you want to do like very precise contouring with powders or creams around the nose or lips. Pencil brushes are also great for any smudged out looks. This brush is going to have a little bit more of a surface area, so you're going to have a thicker smudged look or a thicker smudged liner look. It's also great for creating precision cut creases. Very, very good brush to also have in your kit or in your personal makeup kit. These brushes are all very similar, and I will show you them kind of together and then separately, but they all have a very special place in my heart. That's why I'm showing you them. They might look all the same at a glance, but they are all a little bit different. And it goes in size order right here. I'm first going to show you a very small tapered blending brush. This is going to help you apply maybe a small smoky outer corner, very precise. You're going to get a good amount of color payoff with this brush. If you're doing precise eye looks, this is the brush that you want to use, something small, still a little bit fluffy so you're able to blend at the same time. The next one is going to be a little bit more fluffy. It's going to have a little bit more give. Great for crease work, great for smudging out any drop shadow under the eye. One of my favorite brushes. I probably have about 10 to 20 of them in my kit and for personal use. This again is just one step up from the last one. It is also curved, it is rounded, and you're going to have a little bit more play room with this. It's going to give you a little bit more of a diffused look. If you want to blend things out, this is great, but it's still going to be very precise. You're not going to kind of be all over with it. When you're trying to cover more surface area on the eyes, I would go with larger blending brushes. These are both great. I recommend using natural haired brushes for eyeshadows, anything powder, because it's just going to give you a more diffused look. They're both great. This one again is a little bit denser than this. If you are starting off or you're new or you just don't have a ton of money to spend, do you need all of these brushes? Not necessarily, or if you're using them just on your personal, like on yourself, I would say maybe just one of the smaller ones and then one of the larger ones is totally fine. I'm just showing you because these are some of my favorite brushes that I like to use in my kit in real life. So again, this is gonna both cover a good amount of surface area on the eye, but this one's a little bit more fluffy. It has a little bit more give to the brush where this is a little bit more dense. So this is gonna apply a little bit more product and it's still going to diffuse, where this one is going to apply less product and have a more diffused look. It's also great for just blending out. You just take the clean brush after you did all your precision work. If you want to blend out any harsh lines, this is going to be your best friend. Next up, I have a large smudger brush. I love this for stamping out a crease right underneath to really pop out that lid, or to really give that brow bone a little bit of a pop. Also usable on the face if you wanna just highlight down the bridge of the nose. It is a dense brush. As I turn it, you'll see one side is longer and the other side is shorter. You are going to be able to get some precision with this, but it is larger, so you're gonna cover a bigger surface area than your small smudger brush. Next up, I have a tapered stippling brush. This I love for creams, any skincare application. You could also use a flat brush. Flat brushes are great as well. I don't use them as much in my personal kit or with my clients because I like the stippling brushes, but you totally can. They do different things. The flat brush will apply just kind of like a concealer brush would, because it is flat, it is dense, and it is normally made of synthetic fibers. So it's going to apply all that product in a fuller, heavier layer, opposed to a fluffier stippling brush. This is going to apply a little bit less, and it's going to help diffuse the product at the same time. Both okay to have, both great to have, Really depends on you and what you want. I just think this applies and blends out really nicely, and it just can do it all in one brush. I have a bunch of these. Again, I use them for skincare. I use them to apply foundation. I use them to even apply highlight and contour as well if I'm going for a softer look. So multi-use tool, multi-use brush. A lot of people feel like they need to use 25 different brushes on each face, but if you're using this for your skincare, then you can go on and use it for your foundation, and then you could go on and use it to apply highlight and contour creams, and then you could use it to blend out. So you're using this one brush to do so many different things. So don't be afraid to use a brush for multiple different products and use it in different ways, as like I was saying, applying a product and also blending out a product. This is a flat fluffy brush. This is a natural haired brush. This I like to use for applying cream contour. You're really getting those angles, those sharp angular lines that I like to do for contouring. You could really get right under the natural anatomy and create those structured looks that you want when you're going for more of a cream contoured look. Love this. You can even use it for powders, which is fine as well. Some brush hairs are flying off because it's a newer brush. But yes, this is great to apply strategically where you want any cream contours in the face. Love this for that. These two brushes kind of do the same job. Really depends on the look that you want. They are both highlighting brushes. I like to use them for cream or powder. One is going to be a little bit more dense, one's going to be a little bit more fluffy. So if we were going for a more intense highlight, I like to use the tapered pointed brush opposed to the fan brush. Both great to have. You don't need both if you're starting off or if this is for your personal use. These I love to use for highlighting. Up next, I want to talk about some of my favorite face powder brushes. I can also use some of them for creams. So right here I have 3. Again, not necessary to have all 3 if you don't want to spend the money or if you're using it for personal use. But in my kit, I love them all because they are all a little bit different. This is going to have a little bit less surface area than the rest. They are a little bit wider. And then these two are very similar, but one does have a little bit more give to it than the other. Again, not necessary to have all of them in your kit, but I like to use these brushes for creams and powders. I like to use them to apply maybe a light layer of concealer. I also like to use these brushes to set under the eye or in precise areas, like right underneath the contour of the cheek, or really set just the center of the face. They are great for precision powder looks, and they're also great to apply a diffused cream. One of my favorite blush brushes is going to be a tapered blush brush. I like that it really hugs the angle of the cheekbone. It just makes application super easy, and I always like to apply things up and away, so it does really help with that technique. If you want to have more of like that baby doll blush where it's a little bit more rounded, you could use maybe more of a rounded blush brush. I do love an angled blush brush for my application. I like to apply things up and away, creating a lifted effect. One of my favorite brushes is going to be a tapered blush brush. Now, this can be used for blush or for contouring and bronzing. So blush, contour, bronzing, it's just a smaller face brush. This is just a smaller setting brush that can be used for face powders, bronzers, blushes, anything that you really want to use it for. It is a great brush. It is going to be more precise than a larger fluffy face brush. To kind of apply all over the face, setting powders or foundation powders, anything that you really want to cover a larger surface. These are larger setting brushes. They're both similar. Again, if you don't want to buy both, you don't need to. This is just a little bit thinner. When you turn it to the side, this one is rounded, so it has the same amount of bristles all the way around. If you turn this one to the side, it does get smaller. So it is great for applying bronzers or contours in certain areas. Even if you wanted to use it for blush, it is a little bit less dense, so it's not going to apply as much powder. Love both of these brushes, but if you want to cover a larger surface area, you want to grab the bigger brushes for, the larger parts of the face. Great for powders. Absolutely love those brushes. Don't overthink things. Again, if you want to use this for blush, bronzer, highlight, all over, whatever you want, you can do that. It is just easier to use a more precise brush for those certain areas, like a small blush brush or a small powder brush for smaller areas. So don't overthink it. If you don't have the means to afford so many brushes at once, you don't need to. You can use these brushes for whatever you really want to and whatever makes sense to you. But this is how I like to use them, and I think that it will really benefit you to be able to use the brushes in the correct way and also in the way that you feel fit. This brush, I've always called it the Cynthia brush. If you ever follow me on social media, if you've followed me for years, whenever I take destination brides, I say the adventures of Cynthia, and I have her like either in the window of the airplane, or I, will walk through the venue and she'll be like the main character. If you ever watched Rugrats, this fan brush gets a little bit more used and abused, which I actually like more when she's a little bit more sparse. She starts to look like Cynthia from Rugrats. So that's how she got her nickname, but I call her the Cynthia brush. This is a Morphe fan brush. I don't want you to harp on which brush this is, but any fan brush like this is going to be great for just really getting in those contoured areas, really giving you nice bronze effects to the face. You're not gonna have like a lot of pressure there when you're applying, so it's going to give a thin layer. You're really going to be able to build up the product in only the areas that you want it to be in. So again, since we're able to get that really thin, structured look out of maybe using a powder, I love that. And then you could also use it to diffuse. This is one of my favorite brushes. This is a staple in my kit. A large fan brush is going to be your best friend. You could also use it to apply creams. You can also use it to apply blush. Even highlight if you want to. You're going to just be covering a larger area than a smaller fan brush. So your highlight might just be a little bit thicker opposed to using like a thinner fan brush. Next really are just two kind of more or less tools. I wouldn't consider them a brush, but one is going to be a powder puff. I love this for obviously powder, using it to set under the eye, using it to set under any kind of contoured areas that you want. Love this for powders. Next up is a blending sponge. A lot of people have questions about a blending sponge. I just have my coffee cup right now. I drink all of my coffee, but I wanted to show you as an example how wet they should be and how wet they should not be. When you're using a beauty blender or a beauty sponge for creams, you want them to be damp. You don't want them to be soaking wet, but you do want to make sure that you fully saturate the sponge and then squeeze all of that water out prior to using it, even letting it sit to the side for a little bit prior to using it so it's not super wet. You don't want any water coming out of it, but you did want that full sponge to fully absorb as much water as it possibly can so it fully expands, and then you squeeze all of the water out. A lot of people don't understand that concept fully, and that is very important. This is how you're gonna use the sponge to the best of its ability, and it won't absorb your cream or liquid products. A lot of people will take a wet sponge and dip it into a liquid or cream product. A sponge is going to do what it's made to do. It is going to absorb. So if it is not damp already, you're going to be losing out on a lot of your product. If it is damp, it's not going to absorb that much of your product, and now it's going to just apply what you want it to apply in a really pretty, kind of more airbrushed look. Love beauty blenders, love beauty sponges. They are a staple in my kit as well. I normally go for the black ones. I don't typically reuse them from client to client, but on yourself, they just don't look as crazy, and any color is totally fine. Any line is totally fine that you prefer to use. Again, in my little bonus, in my giveaway that I will have with this video, I will attach my favorite ones that I personally use with their links so that you don't have to worry about writing all of this down during this video. But again, if you are just using this for liquids or creams, you do want it to be damp. Don't forget to do that. If you're using them just for powders, they do not need to be damp. If it is already damp, that is okay, that is fine. You will get a little bit more powder payoff if it is a dry puff or a dry sponge. I prefer to apply powders with my powder puff and creams with my blender. In another video, I will talk to you about my brush cleaner and how I like to clean brushes in between clients and at night after a full day of clients. Today I had a client this morning, so I quickly spot cleaned these brushes so that I could show you all using my brush cleaner, and it's just an instant brush cleaner. You don't need to use any water with it. Always have that on hand, especially in between clients. And if you are using your own brushes, it's always good to really cleanse and sanitize those brushes in between uses, just so that you're not letting any of that product build up in there, because that does allow bacteria to grow and build up in those brushes deep inside, and then you're going to wonder why your products aren't performing as well or why you're breaking out. So very important to have clean brushes and clean tools in between each client and for your daily use. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope that it kind of brought a little bit of light that you can use brushes for whatever you really want to use them for. We all are going to have a personal preference. They're going to be designed for certain things, but if you like to use a certain brush to do something that it's not necessarily made to do, you're not wrong. If it works for you, do it. If it doesn't work for you, don't do it. I hope this video helped. Tag me on social across all platforms. I am Lauren_D'Amelio, and on Facebook, I am Lauren D'Amelio Ventry. I hope you enjoyed this, and I will see you in our next video. See you guys.